Welcome to the Diverse Bookshelf. I'm Samia Aziz, celebrating the power of literature and the voices of authors and changemakers from the global majority. Join me as we explore the stories that inspire, connect, and transform our world. Let's uncover the stories that truly matter together. On today's episode, I'm joined by Tasneem Abdur-Rashid for the third time in 3 years. Tasneem is a communications professional, writer, and author of the powerful new novel, Odd Girl Out. Tasneem's work explores identity, faith, family, and belonging with characters and stories that speak to experiences rarely seen in mainstream publishing. Odd Girl Out follows the story of a young woman, Maariyah, navigating friendship, love, and the weight of expectations while also confronting the unspoken challenges of mental health and community pressures. Her life is uprooted following the divorce of her parents, and she leaves behind a life of glitz and glamour in Dubai for the rather less impressive London. It's a novel that is both deeply relatable and refreshingly bold in its honesty. In our conversation, we talk about the inspiration behind the book, Tasneem's journey as a writer, about divorce and family, and the importance of seeing authentic Muslim representation in literature. I'm so honored to share this conversation with you. It's moving, insightful, and necessary. Tasneem, welcome back to the Diverse Bookshelf. It's so great to have you on the show. I can't wait to talk about your latest published book, Odd Girl Out. But this isn't your the newest thing that you wrote. I mean, obviously you've worked on it, but it's one of your earlier pieces of work actually. So I'm really excited to talk about it. But how are you doing?
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me back. Like honestly, I feel as if like I'm a pro on your podcast now because this is the third time I'm coming on and I'm just hope people aren't bored of me and they're not sick of hearing about me and what I'm doing because you know what? I really hope to be coming back here year after year, inshallah. But thank you so much for having me back here.
I am so pleased to have you back on the show, and I think it's amazing. You've published basically 3 books in 3 years, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, but you
And
know
I
that's it now.
that's it now?
That's it. I know we're supposed to talk about what's next after at the end,
Mm,
but because I haven't written anything else, like I'm literally working on stuff now,
mm.
and they're still in the early stages. So it's almost as if like I got all this stuff out. I had all this stuff in my head and in my heart, and I've got it all out, and now I'm just taking a moment to kind of work things through again, like come up with new ideas and different things I want to work on, which we can talk about at the end when you get to that question. But yeah, there's not going to be one next year, but inshallah in a couple of years, yeah, there'll be more.
Yeah, and that I think is perfectly fine because, I mean, we know that a book a year is pretty crazy. Like, that's really intense. As a writer, sometimes it takes years, and there's authors I've had on the show as well that have said, this book took me like 10 years to put it together. So you've done amazing to be getting out 3 books in 3 years, and I'm sure whatever you do next is going to be well worth the wait. And you also need to stop spoiling your readers in the sense that we're getting used to a book a year, so it's good.
That's true. That's
We
true.
can
You've got to let
exercise
people
the patience.
wanting, all of that absence makes
Mm,
the heart grow fonder and all that, right?
yeah.
So yeah, there will be a little bit of a break while I work on the next projects, inshallah.
So, Odd Girl Out is your latest book,
Yeah.
and this is actually in the YA genre. And it's the story of a 15-year-old Maria who was living like a very privileged glitz and glam life with her parents in Dubai, and has to relocate to the UK with her mum. And it's a massive culture shock. And we sort of follow her journey. She navigates all these huge life transitions and getting used to a new school and facing things that she's never had to even think about up until now. And I think it's a really great story. And I know that there's some real life experiences from your family members that you've sort of drawn from. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about what it's like for you to have been writing the YA genre. And I understand that this is actually the thing that you did first, but how was it different, I guess, to your adult novel books that you've done?
Right. So actually, this was, I think, maybe I did it in between writing Finding Mr. Perfectly Fine and writing the 30 before 30 list. So this was, yeah, I wrote this one in between. So at that point, I'd written one book already, adult book. And this one I had written as part of my dissertation when I was doing my master's in creative writing at Birkbeck. So basically, we'd obviously there were like different modules and stuff, and we did a module on genre.
Mm.
And within the genre module, there was a YA component. And we went away. We had to read all these cool YA books like The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which I absolutely loved. And then we had to go and write just a short, like 1,000 words, to be workshopped in class. And the 1,000 words that I wrote were actually from the bit where Maariyah goes into school for the first time and she walks
Mm.
into the classroom. So that was what the 1,000 words that I did. And it just came so naturally to me. Like, honestly, there aren't many things in life that do come this naturally
Mm.
to me. Yeah, I have to work at some things, a
Yeah.
lot of things, but this actually, it just fell out of me, I'd say. It literally just fell out, and I wrote the 1,000 words and I was like, oh my god, like, I really really enjoyed this. I need to develop the story. But then I thought, I don't know, maybe let's see if there's anything there if everybody else likes it. So when I submitted it to at school, at uni, and everyone read it and my tutor read it, everyone was just blown away. It was actually really funny because up until that point, no one paid any attention to me.
Mm.
I was just like in the back, very quiet, and didn't really talk much. At this point of my MA, we were in lockdown. So
Mm.
lockdown had just started, so everything had moved onto Zoom, and I'm not great on Zoom. Like, I'm not gonna like interrupt somebody by accident to say something. You
Mm.
can't feel, isn't it, when to speak when you're in a massive Zoom call with 30 people. So
Mm.
I was just really quiet and never said a single thing. And at that moment, when everybody read that extract, suddenly people were paying attention to me and thought, oh, actually, she's all right. She's not
Mhm.
bad. And my tutor at the time, she's also writes YA. Her name's Julia Bell, and she had a massive YA book that was really famous in I think it was the 90s or the early 2000s. And anyway, yeah, so she absolutely loved it. And then she came back to me and said, you have to do something with this. Why don't you consider doing this as part of your dissertation? So yeah, that's how it came about. And I wrote the whole book for my dissertation, which I didn't have to do. You only had to give in, I don't know, 10 or 20,000 words or something. But I ended up writing the whole book in 2 months. So it's funny
Wow.
you said how sometimes books do
Mm.
take 10 years and sometimes they take 2 months. So I wrote it so quickly. Obviously, that was the first draft and we worked on it a lot after that. But the first draft, I've never written that fast in my life. And I just absolutely loved every single second of it. And I'm wondering if like YA should be my new thing.
Mm.
What do you think?
I think it was great. And I can understand it why it sort of just flowed out of you, because I think YA as a genre is just it's so interesting because you can explore a whole range of issues and really deep and really serious stuff if you want, but still do it in a way that doesn't feel too heavy in the way that adult fiction can sometimes become. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that actually. That do you think, because you said that YA might be your new thing, do you think that it is a good genre to do exactly what I just said, to be able to talk about things that are big and serious and maybe not even serious but important, things like identity and belonging and family? Because I think so much of, like, when I think about YA, like if I strip it all back, my thoughts go to fantasy. It goes to like the
Yeah.
Hunger Games and maybe even like, Harry Potter or whatever. Like, it goes to fantasy. And I think fantasy YA is incredible, and I think it has its space. I haven't read really any adult fantasy. And I'm not a fantasy reader anyway. But increasingly there's such a diversification of that genre, and I just wondered what your sort of experience and views and thoughts on that is.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I feel as if that's sort of what I do with my adult books as well. So
Mm.
I'll take topics that are a little bit uncomfortable, a bit difficult, and then just write it with a light touch so it doesn't feel too heavy when you're reading it, because it's balanced with the romance and the fun and the comedy and the drama, and it's all balanced within that. So I think that kind of comes naturally to me anyway.
Mm.
So when I wrote Odd Girl Out, that was a kind of style that I'd adopted, again unintentionally, to talk about heavy topics, but a little bit lighter. But I think with YA, because the genre YA itself is so huge, it could be anything.
Mm.
You can literally write anything. And I think what I liked about this was that you can write YA and not be pigeonholed into a specific genre, because in itself it is one, by itself,
Yeah.
standalone, it is one. So with adult books, for example, I've written two rom-coms. Now suddenly I'm this rom-com writer, and I'm struggling
Mm.
actually to break out of that, because there are the things I want to write about, but it's not easy to now suddenly move and change and do something different.
Mm.
When people expect a certain thing from you and your publishers expect a certain thing from you, it's quite hard to break free from that.
Yeah.
Even though it's only been two books, it's not like I've written 10 rom-coms. I've written two,
Mm.
but already I've been put into that box. So I think YA did feel like a bit of a crossover, like I'm kind of leaving that box and doing something different, but at the same time maintaining what I do best, which is looking at some hard topics, but with a light touch.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it does, like, I mean, obviously reading it, if I didn't know that it was by you, I would be able to tell from the
Really?
writing. Yeah,
Oh, I
definitely.
love that. I really
It's
like
still very
that.
much a
Oh my
Tasneem
God,
book.
I have a style.
And yeah, and to be honest, I was a bit nervous before reading it, because obviously the two books by you I have read have been this wrong rom-com, and I was like, oh, this is different, and I didn't know exactly, how we, like, YA is a genre, but you have genres within it, right? And so
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I was like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. Is she gonna be able to pivot? Like, but I think it was, yeah, I think it was great. Definitely, still, you have a style for sure.
Oh, that makes me so happy to know that I have a style. Like, I know that's such a weird thing to say, but honestly, like, I never really thought about it. But the fact that, yeah, you can read it and know that it's me, I love that. I love that. I have a
Yeah,
stamp. Yeah.
yeah, and you do definitely adult in your adult books. There's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of sensitivity and gentleness that, I think really helps bring out the story and really makes it it feels like a safe space when you're reading it. Um, but I think the YA genre demands that in and of itself. Like, you shouldn't be forcing it. Like, it is what is required in order to be a good YA book, I guess. If you think about who you're trying
Yeah.
to reach out to more so than with
With
your
an
previous
adult.
books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I did feel that sense of responsibility when I was writing it, that this is different. They're not adults, they're
Mm,
young people, and they're already going through so much. They're going through so many changes emotionally, physically. They're transitioning from, childhood to adulthood, and then they're in that awkward space in the middle of the two. And I know it's not nice to call them impressionable, but it's true, because they're
mm.
still absorbing everything at that point. Young people are absorbing everything around them and deciding, like, figuring out what they like, what they don't like, who they are, where they fit in, what topics are important to them. And there's just so much going on there. And so, yeah, I was mindful of that. And I tried to write sensitively about topics that were hard, like race, like Islamophobia, like divorce. They're all big, big topics. So I was really mindful of the fact that there are young people reading this, and this could be a book, the first book that they've read, that talks about things they've experienced. And I
Mm.
wanted them to obviously connect to it and feel that, feel a bit less alone when they read it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that we sort of see in the book is, obviously, Maria is, as you've just described, like, going through all of these big issues. Her parents have recently gotten divorced, and she's been flown halfway across the world. And she's also living in Essex, which is a very white area, so it's not very diverse, it's not very welcoming and accepting. She's quite far away from even the family that she does have in the UK. Um, and there's a lot that she's going through, but alongside her processing everything and trying to make things work and make herself feel better, what we really get from this character is a sense of responsibility and pressure that's on her to be responsible and be understanding and not add to the problems of her mother, and to be kind and all of these things, and you can really see her struggle with that throughout the book. And I wondered, what about that particular thing did you want to bring out? Because I think it's so important that we understand the perspective of young people during these kind of situations.
Yeah, I think when I've read other books talking about children of divorce, one thing that stood out to me was that there wasn't that much exploration of that massive sense of responsibility that a child might feel towards their parent.
Mm,
You know, obviously, there's things about feeling isolated, there's things about feeling guilty, wondering what they could have done differently, that kind of thing. But actually, that duty of care that a child feels towards their parent, especially when they're really close,
mm,
that was something that I hadn't really seen before, or maybe I just hadn't come across it. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to experience, like, write that. I went through a divorce recently. It's not something that I've actually spoken about publicly before. So, this is the first time I'm talking about it publicly. And I've got two children, and my eldest son, he's little, he's much younger than Maria, but there's already a massive difference between him and his younger sibling where he feels as if because he's older, he is responsible. And I can see in the way that he treats me, how gentle he is with me because he can see that I've been through such a hard time and he doesn't want to add to that. But
mm,
that makes me, in turn, feel very, very guilty because I don't want my child going through that. He's a child. He's still, I want him to have fun and I want him to be innocent and I don't want him to lose that, and I don't want him to feel as if he's responsible towards me. But I think that's something that older siblings do in general.
mm.
They carry that burden.
Yeah.
And with Maria, she's an only child, so she carries that burden even more. And she's a
Mm,
daughter as well, and she's with her mom. So again, she's carrying that, and she's got no one to share the load with. So that's why everything feels so enormous to her, and rightly so, because her mom is placing a lot on her shoulders. She's becomes completely absent, and she's just doesn't notice what's going on around her, and she's completely unaware of what Maria is going through and all the trauma that she's going through. So I really did want to explore that mother-daughter relationship. Yeah.
I think it's really the scenes in the book where she has these very difficult conversations with her mother, sort of, closer towards the end. I think one of the most moving things about those conversations, where they were not just about her mother sort of saying like, I'm here to reassure you, like, everything's okay, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. Like, it wasn't just about that, but it was also about her mother looking inwardly about the things that she could have done differently and the things that she maybe had, made mistakes because they had hidden things from her. They hadn't been very honest and open with her about what was happening and why the decisions were being made. They also didn't give her much warning or much notice that she was moving. And I think that open communication was really, really powerful. And I hope that it sends a message to young people that it is okay and it is absolutely needed to have conversations with your parents during situations like this, because not only do they have the ability and the capacity to handle it, but actually it's their duty. It's their duty rather than your duty.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was also hoping that any adults who read this would also take that,
Mm,
as a message, because we do sometimes do that. Sometimes we mollycoddle our children and we hide things from them, thinking that we're protecting them. But
mm,
actually, them wondering what's going on causes a lot more damage than actually knowing what's going on.
mm,
And I think there's a balance that you need to strike where, yeah, you don't have to overshare and place adult burdens on them, but you
mm,
have to be kind of open to an extent because they're going through such a massive upheaval anyway, and
mm,
they feel as if they've lost all sense of what's normal in this world.
mm.
And to have a parent hiding things, that adds to that distrust and not knowing what's going on and that sense of unease and feeling confused all the time, walking on eggshells. If they know to an extent what's happening, it puts trust in that relationship as well. They know they can trust you, they know that that's their safe space,
Yeah.
that's who they can come to talk about their feelings.
Mm,
And at the same time, it gives them that reassurance of what's actually going on, because stability is key. I would say for the child's stability is key throughout a process like this. So, funnily enough, like a lot of adults have been reading this book as well. Like a lot of
Mm.
them message me and say, you know what, I don't read YA, and I thought I was going to like it, but actually, I absolutely loved it. And I've had so many women actually message me and say that they're going through a divorce and they could really resonate
Mm.
with the book. So I found that really interesting because I wasn't really expecting adults to read it at all. So yeah, that's been interesting.
Well, thank you for talking a little bit about what you've been going through personally. I know that you haven't spoken about it publicly before, and so I'm glad that you feel safe enough to share a little bit. But just as you were talking, and obviously, like I, I, kn- I knew before that you were not going through a divorce while you were working on the book.
Yeah.
But how have your recent or more recent, I guess, obviously I don't know how exactly how things have been, but how have your more recent life experiences changed your relationship with this book? Because I mean, first and foremost, I can imagine it's harder in many ways, also more emotionally taxing for you to talk about these things because it's happening to you rather than something you're aware of because it's happening to other people. But how is it, yeah, how has it changed your relationship to this book and engaging with readers about it as well?
It's been really interesting because, like you said, I wrote it before when I was still married, and I had no
Mm,
idea what was in my future because I wrote it 4 years ago
mm,
or something, 5 years ago. But when I was editing the book, the most recent edits, the last two rounds of edits, I'd say this is when I was having going through my issues in my marriage, and
mm,
suddenly I was editing it thinking, oh my God, like, did I wish this upon myself? I wrote about
yeah,
this,
mm,
I wrote about this, and now it's coming true. Like, did I
yeah.
manifest this almost? So when I edited it, I did actually edit it to include feelings of how I was feeling and
Ah,
things that I've
interesting.
gone through. So
Mm,
some of that has gone in, not massive amounts, because at
mm,
that point we'd already done most of it and we couldn't play around with too much.
mm,
But yeah, there are things in there that's like emotions and conversations that are quite real, like just little things like when Mario opens up Netflix and her dad's icon is still there.
mm,
That was something that happened to me. I opened up my Netflix and saw that there. And I
mm,
didn't run off and cry in the bathroom.
mm,
Me and Mari's mum are very different in the book.
yeah.
But it did kind of wind me slightly. And
Mm,
it's like that constantly, just constantly being reminded of that person who's been in your life for so many years. And there's
mm,
little signs of them absolutely everywhere. So I wanted to capture that. But I have found it difficult reading
mm,
it and talking about it because obviously, having gone through it myself. And actually, so the real Maria, who's my niece, her parents aren't divorced, but she did. She moved from Dubai and she moved to England, where she was very isolated. And a lot of the feelings that Maria experiences in the book mirror the things that my niece Maria experienced.
mm,
And actually, when she read it, when she started reading it for the first time, she found it difficult to read,
mm,
and she was like, you know what, it was actually a bit triggering for me at the beginning because it just brought back all those feelings of how I
mm,
felt when I first moved here and leaving behind my whole life and leaving behind my friends and being so different from everyone here. So that kind of brought it all back. So it's a book that's managing to like draw out of a lot of emotions from me and my family. It doesn't
yeah.
help that I've literally named everyone after real people.
Oh.
Yeah, that doesn't help the situation. But yeah, so this book, I mean, everyone always asks, how much of it is true, and I think this is probably the closest to an autobiography that I've got so far,
Mm.
unintentionally.
Yeah. It's a really, I don't know, like, it feels like divine intervention almost, just like the timing of everything. Um, and obviously, like, when you first started writing it, you had no idea how much you would end up relating to the story and to the character, because obviously she's based on your niece, but she's not actually. She's Maria's Maria, right?
Yeah,
Um, and I think that makes it, yeah, just that's added so many layers, I think, to this book. It
and you
feels
know
very
what?
different. Mm,
And also, like Maria, the character in the book,
mm,
she's actually a lot like how I was as a teenager.
mm,
So my sister, when she read it, she was like, so Maria's mom, when she read
mm,
it, she was like, you know what? She goes, yeah, it's based like on some of Mari's experiences, but her personality is you. She goes, that was you as a teenager. That's exactly you. And I
Mm,
didn't notice that when I wrote it. I didn't realize that until both my sisters read it and said, that's basically you,
mm.
how you were when you were younger. So yeah, there is a lot of me in this book. There's a lot of my family, a lot of our experiences in this book. And so yeah, it has been tough. It has been tough reliving it and talking about it. But at the same time, I think every time I talk about it, it gets easier and it makes me
Mm.
stronger. And it's almost like a form of therapy, almost like reading it and talking about it again and again. And it's helped me kind of process what I've been through. So it's been a blessing, really.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, by the end of the book, hopefully not giving away any spoilers, but like by the end of the book, so much is better for all of the characters in the book, right? For Maria and her mum. And I hope that also gives you hope as much as you didn't know what was going to happen 4 years ago, but now maybe you can see something that's a little bit more hopeful as well. And things are better for them in terms of like how comfortable they're feeling, um,
Definitely. You know
with
what?
these new surroundings. Mm,
There's always hopes, always hope. Like obviously me being a Muslim, I never lose hope in Allah's mercy
yeah.
and his bounties. And I know there's hope. I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing the wisdom, behind everything that's happened. And
Mm,
I am hopeful for the future. I mean, 4 years ago I didn't know I'd be here, and I
mm,
don't know where I'm going to be 4 years from now. I could be absolutely anywhere. And I have firm faith in Allah that it's going to be somewhere good.
yeah. I'm sure as well. Inshallah, I'm really sure. I'm very, very I think you're so yeah, I think you're so incredible. And I'm certain that the future will only be bright, inshallah. So
Inshallah.
yeah. So divorce in general is like a very taboo issue in the South Asian and Muslim community. It it it's happening to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and also
Literally,
because
all my
mm,
friends are going through a divorce or divorced right now.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
oh my
it's a lot.
gosh, that's
Like
a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I would say 3 of my closest friends are either
Mm.
divorced or going through a divorce right now, and the ones who are still married are, like, miserable. So,
Oh, okay.
it's just yeah, it does seem a bit like an epidemic, but I think that's maybe a topic for a different podcast.
But because it's such a taboo, but it's happening a lot and increasingly so, I would say. And also it's important to remember for sure that there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It needs to happen in all the cases that it's happening. And also from an Islamic perspective, it's allowed, it's permissible, it's fine. Like there isn't anything that we should feel questionable about. But it is still to this day still a bit of a taboo. Um, and I wondered, like, what were you hoping you could try and change by writing a story that tackles such a taboo topic?
You know what? I think taboos are only taboos if you don't talk about them.
Mm,
I think once you start talking about something, the more you talk about it, the less of a taboo it becomes.
mm,
And I think I was mindful of that when I wrote it, because obviously it's something that is happening more and more. Like I said, so many of my friends are going through it, have gone through it, and their children are struggling. And I think it's so important. It's too important not to talk about.
mm,
And obviously there's different kinds of stories. There are all kinds of divorce stories out there, and I'm not here to like represent all of them.
mm,
But I felt like this in particular was a very unique divorce story. It wasn't like the same as all the other ones I'd seen or read before, but it was something I'd heard of before. It's stuff that I'd seen before and that's happened
mm,
before.
mm,
So yeah, I wanted to explore that in terms of not just the divorce itself, but why, the reason behind the divorce. That was something
mm.
that I wanted to explore.
Yeah, because that's quite interesting. So I, a few months ago, interviewed Huda Fahmy, who, she's the
Yeah, who the F? Yeah.
yeah, Huda F, yeah, Huda F,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's written obviously, like, it's a children, like a middle grade, I think it is,
Is
book.
it a comic book?
It's a comic book, yeah,
Yeah.
which talks about divorce. So her character of Huda, her parents getting divorced, and she's just trying to navigate it. But it's aimed at a much younger audience, I would say, than yours, and a very
Okay.
different audience.
That's good. Then I should get it for my children maybe then.
Ye
Do you think it would be good for them?
I think it might that I don't know if it would be up their street.
Okay.
I mean, just in the sense that it's about Huda and she's got sisters and
Oh,
it
because 'cause they're
like
boys, yeah.
yeah, it's just it's a little bit different. But what was most interesting about talking to her was in her book, she didn't talk about the reason of divorce at all.
Mhm, mhm.
And that was a part of the point, was that she said that what she wanted to bring out first and foremost was how it was impacting the children and how her parents yeah, how the parents reacted and how they shouldn't, there were things that they should have done that they didn't do, and those kind of things. And she was looking at the mental health impact of divorce and
Mhm,
those kind of
mhm.
things. And when I was talking to her, I completely understood that, yeah, actually, in this story and in this case, it doesn't matter why her parents got divorced. What we're looking at is what happened afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
But also because it's not anybody's business, right? Like,
Yeah.
which I'm sure, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that when you tell people that you're divorced, often the next question comes is like,
Oh, what
"Why?"
happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It's always like, why? What happened? Straight away. But I think obviously with Huda's book, because it's for young readers,
Yeah, yeah,
it's about
yeah.
something completely different. But when you're an adult, and I suppose if you write a book for older people, I think the why does come into it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, people are always asking me why, and it's really annoying because I can tell you 1,000 reasons why, and I'm actually, I don't know if it's lucky or not. I'm lucky enough to have like really good reasons, like why. But there's, you know, what's really hard. What I've
Mm,
noticed for some of my friends, their reasons for getting divorced is harder to articulate
mm,
and it's harder to explain, and that takes up so much energy trying to do that, trying
yeah,
to make somebody understand, you know, why this has happened.
mm,
And it's just exhausting, and I feel really, I really feel for them who have to do that and talk about like the daily wearing down of somebody's soul, you know.
yeah,
And it's really hard because especially in our community, it's like they want something tangible. What did he do? Did
mm,
he beat the crap out of you? Did he cheat on you? Did he, you know,
yeah,
does he drink? Like they want big, big reasons.
mm,
Giving reasons of daily aggressions isn't enough for them.
mm,
So I think that's definitely something. That's something I would like to explore at one point as well.
yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
also, like, marriage and relationships, like, they're so complicated.
yeah,
It can just be that 2 people are just no longer compatible, and maybe they never were compatible.
yeah,
And explaining actually how difficult it is to be in a marriage with somebody that you're not compatible with, and how toxic and harmful that is, but people don't understand. People don't think that that's a valid reason. But of course it's a valid, everything's a valid reason, so
yeah, completely.
just very shocking. But yeah, you do, talk about the reason in the book, and
Yeah,
I think
because
it
it's
was
a big part of the book. Because Maria doesn't know to begin with, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So she spends the first, you know, half of the book wondering what's happened. Why have my
Mm,
parents broken up?
yeah.
And to be honest, like that is a question. Like when we told our kids what was happening,
Mm,
that was the first thing they said. Why? We don't understand. We don't understand
mm,
why, and they want to know why. Children are curious,
of course, yeah.
you know, and I feel as if the children of the parents, you know, who are going through the divorce, they have the right to know to an extent. Obviously, if it's too traumatizing for them, you've got to
Mm,
like, you know, make it suitable for them. But they do have the right to know because that's their family too. Their
mm,
family's been turned upside down. Their lives have completely
yeah.
changed. They're owed some sort of explanation, at least something that's plausible. So with Maria, they don't tell her much.
Mm,
Yet they uproot her and drag her to another country and expect her to be okay with it and just settle in. So yeah, a large part of the book is her trying to figure out what happened.
mm. Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, you it was good, I think, to see how frustrated she was that she wasn't being told the truth, and then how necessary it was for that conversation to happen, so that she understood the complexity of the situation and the sort of the levels of pain and struggle. I think it, yeah, ultimately it was only going to help her, but also you need to know the truth about your own family. Otherwise, how can you have strong relationships with anybody? But it fed also into, for me as well, like what we perceive about Dubai and the life in Dubai, because there's a bit where Maria's mum explains that, look, the law is so different over there. You know, even if I had tried to stay, it would never have worked. But aside from that, you know, when we think about Dubai, we often think about glitz and glamour and like privilege, and obviously, like, we do see a lot of that in the book. But what were you interested, I guess, in showing about the glitz and glamour of Dubai?
I think I wanted to show the contrast between the life there and the life here.
Mm,
Obviously, I've lived both lives, as you know. Like I lived
yeah.
there for 7 years, so I've experienced all of that, and I've got family who still live there. And then I did that move. You know, my niece Maria did that move, and we come back to the UK, and it's such a shock. It's such a cultural shock. And what I really, I guess, wanted to show was that like a reverse immigration story almost,
Mm,
because you know you have that stereotypical story of somebody from you know a difficult background or a war-torn country, or who come as a you know as a refugee or an asylum seeker, or just you know someone here to make a better life for themselves. They've left everything behind and they've come here to make a better life for themselves, right?
mm,
And this is seen as the UK seen as you know like the golden land of opportunities and blah blah, but this is the opposite. It's
mm,
like, hang on a second, no, I already had a golden life and I've had to give it up to come here. And the
mm,
reality here isn't, you know, it isn't as what some people think, you know, the UK to be like. Um, so I did want to show that. I wanted to show that reverse immigration story where not everybody who comes here looking for something better. You know,
mm,
they might be leaving behind something better, but they've come back
mm,
for whatever other different reason. And actually, you know, there are other parts of the world where people have much more glamorous and interesting lives than over here as well.
mhm,
So I wanted to show that because obviously that story of, oh, you've come here seeking a better life, you know, you're taking our money, you're taking our resources and all of that. And
mm,
it's like, well, actually, that's not always the case with everybody.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just as you were talking, like, I know of so many people that have come to the UK for a variety of reasons, and they have left behind or chosen to move away from a life of insane luxury and privilege. And yeah, it's just very interesting reversal of the immigration story that I think needs to be thought about a little bit more. So yeah, I really definitely enjoyed those the comebacks as well from Maria about, well, do you know that I lived in a mansion with a swimming pool? And obviously, like, you know, she says at one point, like, oh, it looks like I'm showing off, but I need you to know actually where I've come from. Like, this is not what you think it is. And I just thought that was so brilliant as well. One of the biggest things that Maria navigates in all of this is the long distance friendships that have now come up, because these were people that she was going to school with and spending all her time with, and then finding new friends. Now, you have written about friendships in your other books as well, and I love reading about friendships. And this one actually was really uh, quite sad and quite difficult to read at points as well, because you could see how much she needed her friends, but didn't always have them because she was dealing with this physical distance, and then there's a time difference, and there's all of this stuff going on. Um, but what did you really want to explore when it comes to friendships, and how friendships can help you when you're going through something so difficult?
I think, you know, when you're going through any kind of pain or hardships, it's so much harder when you're on your own.
Mm,
I feel like it's harder. Obviously, there are moments where you need to be alone and you need to process and you don't want to be around people. But for Maria, especially, because she'd had to leave behind all these people and then she was thrown into this new life where she didn't really know anybody, it
mm,
was only when she made new friends, she started to feel like finding her feet
mm,
and finding her place and realizing that there was space for her as well. And obviously, as someone who's made that move from Dubai to here, or from any country to another country, you can see what happens when you do have to leave, and that distance
mm,
is there, and the time difference is there, and the cultural difference is there as well. And when you're talking, everybody's talking about one thing and you don't understand what they're talking about, or you say something thinking they'll understand, but it just lands differently because they're
mm,
living a different life from you now and they just don't get it. They
Mm.
just don't get it. So I wanted to show that how isolated Maria was feeling because of all these things. It wasn't even just about her mum and her dad and her family and everything, but it was, yeah, the friend thing was huge for her. The reason why she started wearing hijab was because of her friends. They all did it together. So everything about her life is different. And I think when your main form of communication is online, like
Mm.
things can be misconstrued. You can see two blue ticks, and not having a response to that can just feel huge. And that's
Mm.
anywhere you are, even if the distance isn't there. If you're trying to have a relationship with somebody, or you message somebody and you're looking forward to replying, you don't get it, and then
Mm.
you check, oh, they've received it, and or you check the group chat and you swipe and you see who, where it was delivered and who'd seen it.
Mm.
And I think that's a big part of how communication is now. Like, a lot of our communication is online, a lot of it is on apps and WhatsApp and whatever. And I think that causes a lot of issues in friendships, because you miss things and people wonder why. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it play out in even adult friendships,
Mm.
where conversations have happened on a group and certain person hasn't replied to it. So the person who started it thinks they don't care about the fact that this horrible thing has happened to them. But actually, they just didn't see it. They
Mm.
logged in and had 85 messages and just scrolled and missed that important thing.
Yeah.
And it just gets blown out of proportion. So I think that's something that's there's a new way of being, like, there's a new sort of friendship in this era, that is, a lot of it takes place online. And I think, yeah, I did want to look at that, and I wanted to look at how just a few words or a missed message can just change everything.
Yeah. I think you're so right in that, like, especially, I mean, not just when you're younger, but it's so easy for there to be confusion in communication and mixed messaging and things getting lost.
And the
But the
tone,
biggest
right? When there's no tone and you can't hear the
exactly,
tone, it's so easy to,
exactly.
yeah,
But the biggest thing I think that your book helped show us as well is that, like, it's never too late, I think, to try and come back to your friends. And that, yeah, sometimes you do need to take your time as to when you feel comfortable to disclose certain things. And that's okay for you to go at your pace. But if you do feel like there is a distance, it's never too late to try and reduce that distance. And you'll be surprised, like, how willing the other person is is to do that also, because they also feel it, and they also desperately want that
yeah. And
gap to
sometimes
be
it just
reduced.
takes one person to make that move, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
everyone's waiting for someone else to make the move. And if a friendship's worth saving, if it's worth fighting for, then yeah, 100% you've got to try.
yeah, absolutely. And so throughout the book, obviously, we see Maria and her mother, and we also see other family members. So we see her aunts and we see her grandparents. And I love reading about big families and intergenerational dynamics and all of that. But I just as you were just as I was reading rather, I was thinking a lot about how having intergenerational dynamics and links in your life can really impact the way in which you see yourself and the way in which you engage with the world and the way in which you also handle difficult situations. And I just wondered what your thoughts are basically on intergenerational dynamics, both from a great perspective and both on from the challenges that can come from that sometimes.
You know what? I think personally, I think it's so important. I think there's so much that we can learn from our elders and that
Mm,
they can learn from our youngers. And actually, that's the whole reason I moved back to the UK. I was pregnant with my eldest,
mm,
and I wanted him to go around, like, grow up around my parents and grow up around family, and just to learn from them,
mm,
to develop that connection, to see how important family is. And that was the whole reason I moved back in the first place, for that reason. But
mm,
obviously, with it comes challenges. Like you see in the story, Maria's grandma, she's very abrupt. She can be quite black and white about stuff. She can make comments about her mom or her dad that upset her and offend her.
mm,
So yeah, they're definitely, there are challenges when it comes to that. But in Maria's situation, at the same time, she gets that nurturing that she's
mm,
lacking from her mom throughout this process. She gets that from her grandma, and she gets that from her aunt,
mm,
and she has different relationships with everybody, and that's what helps her get through everything in the end. So big families, like obviously I'm from a massive family, can be really, really messy. But at the
Mm,
same time, like for me, it's just absolutely beautiful. There's always backup, there's always someone to back you up when you need it. And I think that's what Maria gets too. But at the same time, that's why she's so disappointed when she finds out what's, the truth between of why her parents split up. The
mm,
fact that all these people who she loves and is so close to hid it from her. They
mm.
all hid it from her. So that becomes really, really disappointing. But yeah, I think obviously it depends. Every situation is different and people are different. But in normal, healthy relationships and households, I think that intergenerational bond is really powerful and really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you on that. I think there is so much that can be learned both ways. Um, how do you think young people can navigate trying to talk about things that they find difficult with people from a different generation? Because not only is there, um, sometimes like we speak differently in different generations, but also I think there's often this fear or this concern that they're never going to understand me. They're not going to understand the situation that I'm in. They're not going to understand the decisions that I've made. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of it's assumptions.
Hmm.
I think a lot young people sometimes assume that older family members are a lot more judgmental than they might think they are.
Mm,
So I think there's a lot of assumptions on that part, but I think the onus is on the older people. I'll say the onus is on the elders in the family to open up those doors of communication, and to be there and to listen and talk without judgment and to really encourage that dialogue. Because I
mm,
think it is hard as a young person to go up to someone older, to go to your grandma, your grandfather, and be like, talk about difficult topics, because sometimes obviously they're seen as judgy or too religious, or they just won't understand, or there's the cultural barrier. I would say the onus is definitely on the elders to do that. And like I've seen it with my parents. Like my dad was really, really open with the grandchildren, much more than with his own children, I'd say. And they
mm,
had that relationship, and he developed that bond with them,
mm,
and he talked to them and he'd ask them questions. And I think when older people, when they show an interest in younger people, that automatically makes them more comfortable to open up. But if you're going to
mm,
have just that kind of authoritarian relationship where you're not asking questions and you don't have a genuine interest in what they're doing, you're just telling them what to do without having that dialogue, I think that's
mm.
when the communication breaks down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And one of the other things that Maria experiences alongside all of this is she faces a lot of racism and Islamophobia throughout the novel. And I think what I'm interested in is wanting to understand why you decided to seep that into the storyline. And it's quite a big part of the storyline as well. Because, Maria could have, the fictional character of Maria, could have come to a part of the UK or part of London that's very diverse. Or she could have come to like Bradford or Leeds or somewhere, where there's a lot more diversity and perhaps a tolerance and acceptance. But in the book, she came to Essex. Um, what did you want to bring out, I guess, about the experiences around Islamophobia and race for young people?
So this is actually the first time I've talked about what I've written about Islamophobia in this much depth in a
Mm,
book. So, like in Finding Mr. Perfectly Fine, there's like a couple of little bits here and there, tiny little
mm,
bits, and possibly in 30 Before 30 as well, just little bits and pieces here and there.
mm,
But this is the first time I've actually written about it properly. So it was something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to, because I think I grew up in an area, it's diverse now and there's a lot of Muslims there now, but I didn't grow up with any Muslims around me.
mm,
And I did face a lot of challenges. Like I've got that scene in the book when Maria and her mum, I think they're crossing the road or something, and then somebody shouts Paki at them.
mm,
And that's what's happened. It's happened to me a million times.
mm.
It's happened to me so many times. And that feeling that you feel utterly winded, like you've been punched in the face,
Yeah.
and I wanted to explore that. I feel like it's too big of a topic and it happens too much
Mm,
not to talk about it ever. And while I
mm,
don't want to be known for only writing about that, which I'd hopefully I'm not, because I write about so many other things as well,
mm,
that it was something that I wanted to include. I don't think you can have a story about a visibly Muslim girl who grew up in a Muslim country,
Mm.
and comes to the UK in a hijab, I don't think it's authentic to have a story without mentioning that at all.
Yeah.
It became a big part of the storyline, definitely, and I think that's because of obviously where I set it,
Mm.
and obviously I wanted to explore the whole immigration element of it, and the class dynamics, the socio-economic dynamics. Like there's a lot I wanted to look into. So I think it kind of made sense for me to have that storyline. And I think also like a lot of us sometimes do shy away from talking about it too much
Mm.
because we are fearful of the fact that we're going to get pigeonholed into being a writer that only talks about Islam and race, or because it's so heavy. And sometimes, obviously, we're much more than that, and we want to be known for other stories as well, joyous things too. But I think this is something that needed to be written about.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think that the Islamophobia and racism that you experience as a young person is also a little bit of a different experience when you experience it as an adult. Whether or not you experience it for the first time as an adult or the first time as a young person, I think there is a nuance there that is a little bit different as well as to how you engage with the world. Because in the book, Maria was completely floored by it. She had no idea about the references that were being made. She had to Google them to try and understand and make sense of what was even being said to her. Um, but I think as well that there are sometimes and often very big and visible and loud forms of Islamophobia and racism, but there are also very small, hidden microaggressions and issues that happen. And I hope that young people will feel empowered to speak out about it and to understand that they're not alone, because even in the most sort of diverse areas and schools and communities, these things are still happening. And it can be so difficult to navigate that as a young person, especially, let alone an adult.
Yeah, completely agree. And also, I think as well as young people reading this book and being able to, feel relate to the story and feel as if they're not alone in their
Mm,
experiences, and hopefully feel empowered to talk about it more. At the same time, on the flip side, people who haven't been through it, I'd
mm.
love for them to read it and see actually, you know what, it's difficult. It's not easy being brown, and it's not easy being visibly Muslim, and it's not easy going through all of this stuff, and maybe create a little empathy there as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also important because although we have a word now for Islamophobia and we have a word now for microaggressions, but when we were younger, we didn't have the terminology for it. But also even now, it's still not given the weight that it needs. It's still.
I know some people still
Yeah.
say it doesn't exist.
Exactly, exactly. And so I do hope that people, but especially young people reading it, are able to see, like, no, my experiences are 100% valid, and this something like this is happening, and if it's not happening to me, I can see it happening to others, and I have a right to stand up against it and to demand to be supported through it also.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So, while writing the book, what would you say were your most favorite parts of writing the book?
um Favorite parts of the actual book itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Am I allowed to give spoilers?
Yeah. At this point, yeah. I think that's
Okay.
fine.
Alright. I loved writing about when she's plotting to run away to Dubai.
Okay.
I
That was
think
quite fun, yeah.
yeah, I did enjoy that. I found it really exciting, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I had the guts to do that myself." Um, I did run away a few times as a child, by the way. So
Mhm.
yeah, but just I didn't get on a plane. Yes, I did enjoy writing about that. I think I really enjoyed the bit when she goes back there and she realizes that everything that she thought she knew was different, and she kind of
Mm.
like obviously romanticized almost her life there to an extent, and when she went back and it just felt so different. I did enjoy writing that, and but I think what I love writing most are the conversations between the characters.
Mm.
And I always, in all my books, I just love writing dialogue. I love writing conversations. So I think that definitely I enjoyed the most.
And what about when it comes to the things that were more challenging?
You know what? To be honest with you, I didn't find anything challenging about writing this book.
Okay, that's
I
good.
really didn't. Like, I had
Mm,
things like, oh, should I even mention the stuff about Shamima Begum? Is it going to date the book? Yeah. Is
mm,
it going to make it old really quickly? Like, there's little technical things like that
mm,
that I had to do. We had to talk about and everything.
mm,
And obviously, I was a bit nervous about writing the character of Jamie, the bully, because
mm.
I was really aware of the fact that while he's a bully, he's still a child. He's
Yes.
still a child. And so he's also a victim in a sense as well of his own situation and
Mm,
his own upbringing and his own experiences. And there's a reason why he's the way that he is. So I
mm.
think that was something that I was very mindful of when writing that. So yeah, there were challenges like that, but nothing major. Like, I honestly just loved writing every single line of this book.
That's amazing. But so writing YA, obviously, you know that you're, I guess, aiming for a younger audience. How does it feel, or how did it feel in terms of trying to make sure that your writing would appeal to somebody that like isn't the same age as you? Because
You know,
I,
it's
yeah.
really funny because when I wrote some of it, so I gave it out. I had
Mm,
like a chapter that I gave out to my friends' kids and stuff like that.
mm.
And some of them did come back and they're like, we don't use hot, we say peng, we say leng, we say this and that, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm not putting no peng and leng in my book. Yeah. I was like, I was like, that is not happening, guys. I was like, that's not gonna happen because that, yeah, already Peng's old and now you're using Leng. Next year,
Mm,
Leng's going to be old, right? And you're
yeah.
going to be using something else. So
Mm,
I was like, I had to think about the longevity of the book, right?
mm,
But at the same time, you need that voice, and yeah,
mm.
so it was a little bit tricky, but I think I did all right. And all the young people who have read it, they all said it was authentic, and they all did feel like yeah, it was true to their own the way they speak and their own experiences as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not I'm not that age anymore, but, like, I mean, to me, it felt like real conversations that I would hear outside, so I think that's good. And you started off, obviously, actually, at the beginning of the episode talking about, um, what might or might not be coming next, but what are you working on at the moment, if
So
you can
I've
share?
actually got two books that I'm working on at the moment, which
Okay.
is mad because I write depending on what I feel like writing, and I've
Mm,
never done this before. This is probably very unhealthy to do to have two bit books at the same time, but it depends on my mood. So the two that I'm working on right now is one's for adults,
mm,
and it's called The Secret Lives of Bengali Wives, and it's all about women in their late 30s and like kind of like what happens after happily ever
mm,
after, what happens after you've had children, what happens if you don't have children, what happens if
mm,
you never get married, and what happens if you get divorced, like all the kinds of things that we go through in our late
mm.
30s. It kind of looks into that, and it's about these four friends from college
Okay.
all going through different things. So there's that, which I've been really enjoying. But at the same time, after writing Odd Girl Out, I was so excited by the whole YA thing. I was like proper gassed by it. And I was like, you know what? I need to carry on doing this whole YA thing while I'm enjoying it. So I started writing a YA as well, which is really fun because it's about it's another mother-daughter relationship thing that's a bit fractured. And then what happens is something happens, daughter wakes up in the year 1999 and
Oh.
she's in her mum's body.
Oh my gosh, it's Freaky Friday.
Yeah, it's like Freaky Friday meets 13 going on 30, but
Oh.
the Muslim Bengali North London version, obviously. Right. And I'm having a lot of fun with that because obviously that's my era. We've got MSN Messenger, we've got
Mm.
Discman, we've got phones that are not smartphones. You have to pay 10p for a text message.
Yeah.
We've got all of that. We've got skinny eyebrows, we've got dodgy hijabs, like everything that we went through in the year 1999 is in there.
Mm.
So it's a lot of fun, and obviously at the end of it, it helps kind of like the mum and the daughter get closer because she's lived in her mum's shoes. So yeah, so I'm doing that at the same time. So yeah, there's
And
two
that
things
sounds
inshallah in
so
the
fun.
pipeline.
That sounds so fun. I mean, the first one also sounds amazing. I think very much needed. Yeah, I think very much needed because, like we were talking about before, like people go through so much, but because nobody's talking about it, it becomes a taboo when it isn't. It doesn't need to be one. I think that book will be very cathartic for a lot of women. And the YA one sounds great. I can't wait. But Tasneem, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you on the show
And
again.
you,
Thank
as
you so
always.
much
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you for
time.
having me. It's been brilliant. Like, you always ask the deep questions. I never know what you're going to say. It's always so, yeah, we really do a deep dive, and I really appreciate that.
Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I loved every moment of speaking to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
I hope you loved listening to this episode and found things that will stay with you. I'd love to hear from you, so please do reach out on social media and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review, as it can really help.